gentlemen, Gungans and droids, and Kirimunikonets across our beloved empire, welcome to today's video where I am heated! But at the same time, I'm at peace today. You know, I had my most miserable Grand Arena experience of all time last week where I was completely swept out. Loss after loss after loss. Very uncharacteristic of the King of Triple B. However, I'm actually at peace now because today we're gonna go over the day that I knew was going to come. Because I'm not wailing on Datacrons, I paid big time. And as a result, you're gonna see a common theme. I lost 3 Grand Arenas, and I'm pretty certain it's because I do not have this Datacron on Night Sister Initiate, and all 3 of my opponents used it to barely get out of some really tough situations. So why don't we sit back, relax, talk about some of my successes, and talk about why I love Datacrons. First round, up against Rossonero! Rossonero is from the same guild as myself, and it started off fairly well as another ordinary day. I adapted or died. Not the right verbiage, but you know what I mean. Up against Commander Luke Skywalker. It's been a pretty staple 3v3 experience, but thank goodness 3v3 is done for another month here. And then we ran into what I like to call a problematic situation. Dash Rendar. The Omicron's nasty. I thought I was ready. I was prepared, but Dash is the king of prepared. I threw in Qui-Gon. Failed. Anakin got stunned. Game over at that point. Tried throwing in Jedi Knight Revan. Game over at that point. We're going to regret giving up Jedi Knight Revan later on in that battle here. And then ultimately I said, all right, we'll come back around to it. And inevitably, unfortunately, I had to use Sith Eternal up against Dash Rendar. Dash Rendar, the Omicron, as well as the Datacron in 3v3, almost requires the Galactic Legend or a really lucky Qui-Gon Jinn battle. We went up against Lord Vader and Fennec. Should have brought in Beskar Mando. Kind of regretted it. Couple of dodges. When I say couple, a lot of dodges. This season of Grand Arena has been the roughest. Lots of dodges, and it's not a lot of fun dealing with those dodges. I made a dissertation. Dodges should not be in Galaxy of Heroes because it's not a skill-based mechanic. It's a RNG, randomized mechanic. Nonetheless, got dodged a lot by Lord Vader. Threw out a Datacron I thought would help. It did not. The evasion down did not work, so we kind of threw in a bad Datacron. Went up against Lord Vader Datacron, and we didn't have Beskar Mando Datacron. Luckily, though, Lord Vader was not that hard to clean up. Managed to clean up Lord Vader later on. However, this is fun. I've been working on some other ways of handling Qui-Gon Jinn, because Qui-Gon could be a little finicky in 3v3. Been getting pretty good at our Newt Gunray. Newt Gunray, Django, and B1 got the job done. Like it a lot, and it saved me bad badge. Almost clawed my eyes out. Grand Inquisitor went up against Captain Rex, and it took almost like the full 5 minutes for them to win. I just keeping reminded after reminded after reminded how much I hate the Grand Inquisitor as well as the Inquisitors. No wonder why Reva had to out him out. This was our first week of Jabba the Hutt in Grand Arena, and I was very surprised with how Jabba the Hutt landed themselves on defense. We'll showcase our opponent's attack, but I pretty much one-shotted Jabba. We used SOKR all 3 times. I know, not really creative, but you know, I didn't want to screw around with Jabba. He looks to be a very solid 3v3 team. Very impressed with him on a defensive stand front here. And then everything hit the fan. Unfortunately, we simply did not have enough left over for Star Killer. Unfortunately, we gave away Sith Eternal. Unfortunately, we gave away our Jedi Knight Revan, and we just didn't have anything for the Star Killer. Unfortunately, didn't turn out well. But taking a look at my opponent's defense here, a couple things were kind of interesting here. Firstly, they were not able to one-shot Jabba the Hutt. In fact, Sith Eternal timed out against Jabba, and they had to clean up Jabba afterwards. So kind of nice seeing that Jabba the Hutt was getting some work done. However, the biggest thing that really threw me off is that it's one of my biggest teams, General Anakin Skywalker on defense. They had the Night Sister Initiate Datacron. And if you guys remember, we made a video about it. Night Sister Initiate Datacron is basically a galactic legend. However, I've refused to take this character to Relic 7 straight from my Gear 6 because she is one of the worst characters in the game. I'm not giving CG the satisfaction of me gearing up this character all the way to Relic 7 just for a few months of benefit. I refuse so, and unfortunately, we're paying the price because they were able to pretty much two-man my General Anakin Skywalker. They did pretty darn well. And aside from that, they ended up pulling a very nice win. 1908 going to Rossonero. Does it get better for the King of Trophy? I spoiled it. It doesn't. Moving on to round number 2. Easton's our next opponent here, and we decided to get a little crazy. This one was definitely a winnable Grand Arena, but we kind of threw some battles away, trying to get experimental. Unfortunately, Wampa let us down. Wampa could, in fact, not solo Jabba the Hutt. Wasn't even close. Would not recommend. Definitely not like a Sith Eternal on defense. Got through Lord Vader very easily. This time, he brought in Beskar Mando. Didn't screw around in the ballpark here. SOKR yet again up against Jabba. This one's a little dicier, bringing in First Order Officer as well as Stormtrooper, but we left the team preloaded up against Jabba the Hutt because of Wampa. So thanks, Jabba. You made my life harder by killing off my Wampa. Moving on. This battle right here. Unfortunately, we got Rey into damage immunity way too quickly with Darth Vader. Darth Vader hypothetically could beat Rey teams, but there's a lot of ways to make it complicated. Unfortunately, our problem was we're using our basic on Galactic Legends Rey, making her fall to damage immunity way too quickly. Inevitably ran into a problem. Vader couldn't finish the job because Rey was in damage immunity, and Jedi Training Rey went off the hooks with all the damage over times there. She was getting tons and tons of turns and cleaned up my Darth Vader. And because Rey was an ultimate, Jedi Training Rey can't die, unfortunately. Moving on to Sith Eternal. They had to use Sith Eternal to clean up a Rey. Not pretty. I don't want to talk about it. We did master the art of Nuke Gunner against Qui-Gon Jinn, so that was very nice to see. And Malgus has been quite a pesky son of a gun. Had to use Master Kenobi up against Malgus. Not a ton of off-meta ways to handle that guy, even without the ideal lineup. There are some, not the most consistent, a lot of issues that are kind of thrown up in the air here. This was really annoying. Shorty's always one of those characters I like a lot this year, and it throws me off guard sometimes. Even when I use teams I know work, and just they stop working all of a sudden, it's not pretty. Boss could not beat Shorty, even though we've done it many times in the past. But Padme, I like this. I think if we were gonna make sure we get through Shorty next time, Padme got the job done pretty well, which I was kind of happy. And at this point, I was rageful. Usually, I've always gotten solid wins of Night Sisters versus Mon Mothma, 100% win rate. However, the Datacron on Mon Mothma made it very complicated. On that level 6 bonus, it's made a whole world of difference. I just could not do enough damage, and my Night Sister counter didn't work. Yet again, a situation where Datacrons ruin our basic understanding of Galaxy of Heroes. And at that point, pretty much just threw in the towel. And at the very end of the day, it just came down to a very sad final battle. And if we just would have had the Wampa locked in and the Shorty battle and the Mon Mothma battle would have went well, that would have been a solid win. However, the battle went to Easton in terms of victory. However, looking at their history here, again, not having the right Datacron is going to cost me. My second opponent had a huge ace up their sleeve. Night Sister Initiate, they used it as a solo up against my Dash Rendar, Han, and Chewie. Maybe there's a situation where my Dash, Han, and Chewie would have gotten way more defensive holds, and that could have been enough to get us to win. However, not having the Datacrons, not wheeling them, and not choosing to get at my Night Sister Initiate cost me. So likely another Grand Arena battle where not having the right Datacron cost me. But on the upside, they were not able to use General Anakin Skywalker against my Jabba, and the Sith Eternal got timed out when they were trying to beat Jabba. So it was kind of nice seeing that it was difficult to clean up a Jabba here, and they had to use Imperial Troopers at the end of the day to get the job done. Moving on, let's get on to round number 3 up against Berater. Now, I'll admit, we were deciding to get a little funny, messing around, and we decided, hey, why don't we just open up and use Dash Rendar up against Luke, and it would have worked. But Barriss made things a lot more complicated in 3v3. We were not able to finish off Barriss, and her passive healing up against all of our cleansing made things kind of difficult. But hey, if there wasn't any Barriss, that definitely would have been a very solid win. Nonetheless, you Starkiller decided to just completely mix things up here, and we brought Starkiller on offense. He's been great on defense over the past several weeks, but I decided to bring him on offense, and Palpatine was able to get very nice wins of Starkiller up against Darth Malgus. However, got a little worrisome because Malgus took a whole Star Destroyer to the face and barely even flinched, but we kept using basics, got the shotgun to stop the healing. Inevitably, we got Malgus down, but he did put up quite a decent fight. Yeah, again, third round, we decided to use SOKR, Supreme Leader Kylo, up against Jabba. Got the job done. Get it? Jabba done. All right, thanks, Gary, for something. But again, 3 out of 3 wins against Jabba the Hutt. Very happy to see that. And our opponent had a very difficult time, but I wonder how they got through my Jabba at the end of the day. We will find out in a moment here. Unfortunately, another situation where Datacrons made things complicated. Imperial Troopers up against Darth Revan, a bread and butter counter, and even in 3v3, but they had a ton of armor. Datacrons had a ton of armor on the set 3, and we just didn't have enough firepower to overcome that armor that Basilisk Sean had, and we just couldn't get a train going. Was a little unfortunate. We had to inevitably throw General Anakin Skywalker against them. Not pretty. We ended up using Jedi Knight Revan to clean up the Master Luke Skywalker. We had to use Jedi Knight Luke Skywalker to get the job done. This was a lot of fun. We went up against Starkiller. We had to make sure to make the right lineup. We threw in Tarkin lead for the extra speed. Gideon to outrun the other team and pull back their turn meter, and then Vader got off to the races. It's a weird Datacron. We're in a weird spot of the game, but Vader was able to take out the Starkiller team. Very nicely done. And this is where I really lost my crap. The dodges do not belong on Datacrons specifically. Fine, have your dodges and galaxies. They do not belong on Datacrons. Our opponent had an absurd amount of dodge. Savage has been doing amazing things over the past several days of Grand Arena. I got a lot of defensive holds with Savage. Speaking of which, why don't we go review those defensive holds before I talk about my rage. In round 1, Savage was getting some interesting work done. Savage was able to take on quite a few battles. Our opponent tried throwing Night Sisters. Savage held the fort. They tried throwing First Order against them. Savage held the fort. And inevitably, it looks like they had to use Dengar. I think there's a couple of battles missing in between, but the logs showed they had to use Dengar and Mandalorian. Kind of seems like that. It seems like you need an insta-kill to handle Savage. So I've been thoroughly impressed with them. Our opponent in round 2 had these again, Mandalorian to disintegrate Savage. It seems like one of those characters you're going to need a lot of firepower to work through Savage. But then in round 3, I decided let's bring Savage on offense, and it looked like it could beat it, but we were getting dodged so much. When I get a turn, it was a little bit rare because they had the cooldown reductions. Mara Jade was able to kind of get a mini loop going, but when I did get a turn, I would just keep missing my attacks, throwing me up the wall. Nonetheless, I was quite impressed of how durable Savage Opress was, but timed out, and at that point, I was beyond frustrated, and I gave up. But this is what I'm saying. I think this was definitely a Grand Arena we should have won if all things were equal and considered. However, let's check out our opponent. Our opponent had to go through a ton of battles on my Jabba that they started off using gas. Gas didn't even put a scratch on my Jabba. And again, I don't even have any Jabba specific Datacrons on or Scoundrel Datacrons on him. Gas did not work on him. They tried throwing Beskar, Mando, Han, and Chewie. Did not work on Jabba. Inevitably, they were able to bring in Traya and try to piecemeal the Bauschleya as well as Kersanthin. And at that point, they had Jabba left over and they didn't have a ton to work with. And inevitably, if you're seeing the common theme today, our opponent had a Relic 7 Datacron Night Sister Initiate and was able to clean up my Jabba the Hutt. So it's a little unfortunate. It made sense. I felt like I was missing something these past rounds. I did not really look at my opponent's Datacrons. I don't even know what I have in my Datacron inventory. But seeing that all 3 of my opponents back to back to back had a Relic 7 Night Sister Initiate, had the Datacron, which allows her to solo big teams, even take on Galactic Legends, was very inevitable. It was a very handy tool, and this is where we are in Grand Arena, where if you don't have the right Datacrons or you don't want a Relic 7, some of the trashiest characters in the game, just for a few months of bonuses, you're gonna get screwed at the end of the day. And in this past week of 3v3 final week, I paid big time for not fully embracing Datacrons and not giving in to what CG wants to do, is getting all the Datacrons and leveling up characters that are bad just for a few months of benefits. But you know what? I'm at peace. I'm at peace with all that because that's just something I kind of understood that was going to happen. The second Datacrons came in. I said, you know what? The wins are probably not going to be the same moving forward. And it hasn't. We still win a grand majority of our Grand Arenas. But I will say, ever since Datacrons came, the magic and the competitive spirit, even if there was even a little bit before, feels like it's kind of gone at this point. And still, even after getting slammed out, they probably want me to wail on these Datacrons. But to them, I say, nuh-uh, I'm good. Thanks anyways. But on that note, ladies and gentlemen, Gungan Droid, you know what was guaranteed? We had a ton of fun hanging out with one another, and I appreciate you guys coming out and dealing with my rageful presence with the current state of Grand Arena. But you know what? We make our own fun out of it at the end of the day. And the things I was impressed with this past week of Grand Arena. Jabba the Hutt, very solid. Savage Opress, great on defense, great on offense. And Datacrons, I hate you Datacrons, and hope you find the deepest depths of hell. But on that bombshell, hope you're having fun hanging out here and playing your Grand Race. Hopefully Datacrons aren't giving you guys nearly as much of a headache. But on that note, I said on that note a lot. We're writing a lot of notes apparently. Leave that like, comment down below, scrub side, so you're not missing a thing. And always remember around these parts that it's great to be in the Empire today.